Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Resilience+Rise, the podcast where we transform adversity into triumph and to illuminate the extraordinary potential within all of us. I'm your host, Thomas Carrier. I'm a resilience coach, an marathoner, and a firm believer in your next most powerful chapter. This podcast is a companion to my upcoming book, Resilience Plus Rise 26.2 Transformative Miles to Unleash the Marathon of Your Life Mindset, coming spring 2025, just few months from now. Here we amplify stories of hope, perseverance, and successes to inspire your journey. So, for today's conversation, imagine a personality in a total military gear fighting battles, and the next scene is loving golf, hitting the putts one after the other, just enjoying the moment. But how do you see it? One person's journey to transform the lives of many, specifically in their mental health, to make a transformation. I would like to welcome Jonathan Sessa. He had a nomadic childhood, challenges as a childhood, into the battlefields of military, and now, of course, the golf greens. But that's too easy. His story, Jonathan's story, is a testament of transformative powers of resilience. This journey, as we continue to talk, is overcoming adversity and finding redemption through something called as passion. Yes, we are talking about golf. So, without wasting much time, Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Oh, Thomas, thank you so much. This has been a long time in the making. We've been waiting to get together, so I appreciate it. That's a fantastic introduction. I feel like now I don't even have anything to say. You did it
Ah,
all. So you
you're
went
you're
through
very humble.
everything.
You're very humble. No, the I see the element of intrigue is okay. You have been in military. You've been having your challenges, and
Mhm.
then the story of golf comes up. But before we can totally jump into what you're doing with golf, tell us about your journey so far.
So my journey, I was born in California and I had a nomadic childhood, bounced all over the place through my father's work. I was the first to join the military in my life. I kind of felt that I was stuck where I was. I had nowhere upward momentum in the jobs that I was working, and I just wasn't being challenged. Military was always something that I was kind of interested in, right? Serving my country and giving back. So I ended up enlisting. I didn't enlist until I was 25. So it was a little bit later in life. Enlisted, first duty station was in South Korea. So I had a lot of fun. Talk about one of the first times leaving the country. Only other time was to Canada, and that was just over the border, just quick and back. But being the first time being overseas like that in a completely different environment, we were stationed just a few kilometers away from the DMZ, and that served to be quite the adventure. We did a lot of work hard, play hard, as they would say. So my indoctrination, I suppose, to the military was one of just hard work, camaraderie, and alcoholism. Honestly, everyone is overseas and you leave your family, and that's before they considered it a deployment. So we were stationed over there. I spent almost 15 months in South Korea, and the only thing that people would go out and do would mainly be drinking. So we would have formation runs. I remember people joking about it in the mornings. You would fall out of the run and be throwing up on the side, and it would just smell like alcohol and everyone, and you're looking around and pretending like it's not supposed to be you, and you're laughing about it. But that kind of sets the tone for my whole military career. So with that, alcohol was always not just encouraged, but it was accepted, right? At all levels. If you came to work and you were still hungover, you were still even drunk, it was okay. Nobody say anything. They just let you work it off and sweat it out. And that was the best thing. So after leaving Korea, I went to Colorado. In Colorado, I had a deployment from there. So I went overseas to Kuwait. And from Kuwait, our platoon had stints in Iraq. So we would go over in different spots in Iraq and fire artillery missions. So being overseas was definitely difficult as well. There was a lot of things we just couldn't talk about, things that are happening, the communications and everything like back home was something that made those difficult. It was, you felt very detached. And so when I returned from deployment, I got a lot of that, oh, you're different, you're not the same. I went through some counselings and it just didn't seem to really help. A lot of the stuff that I was seeking help for, I was trying, and I ended up getting a lot of medications to help with things like that. When I was in a vehicle rollover and fractured my neck in 2 places. And when that happened, I have numerous TBIs as well. And the TBIs encouraged PTSD. I have neurological issues that lead to vertigo, which makes it interesting to play golf. So that's a different story, as well as some nerve damage that goes down and that occupies and gets worse on some days, dependent. So with all of those challenges as well, I was just heavily medicated in the military. Instead of getting processed out, I was kept in. I was put through all the different programs. We try physical rehabilitation. We would try chiropractic. We would try deep needling and acupuncture and different things like that. But at the end of the day, they said there was nothing that could generally be done, and they just put me on pain medications, and that was the end. So I was on opiates for 8 years, and that's
Wow.
a long time to just be drugged up, and that mixed with alcohol kind of defined the rest of my career. I was advancing fast. I knew the military would be a great place for me. I enjoyed the structure of it. I always kind of pushed the limits. I figured that being good at my job was the only thing that really mattered, and that's what I excelled at. But at the end of the day, there's a lot more to it. The things that end up kind of haunting me now, I would say, and looking back on it, I like to use a lot of analogies, and I talk about trauma as being like waves against a rock cliff, if you will. And, it doesn't do anything and it's fine. And first responders, military, when you're in the moment, you're doing it, no problem. Like, you just put it aside, and people say, well, you know why it doesn't affect you? Well, that's because you're a good soldier, or that's because you're a good cop, or it's because you're a good doctor, right? You don't let those emotions get in the way of the work that you have to do. But eventually it catches up, just like that erosion, right? It just eats at you and eats at you and eats at you, and eventually it catches up. And it caught up for me. And when that looked like, in my experience, was from having soldiers of my own that had taken their own life, such as walking into a barracks room and finding that your soldier had missed some formations, and you go to check on him, no one's heard anything, and to find him had hung himself in the closet there is something difficult. You don't forget things like that when it comes to someone that was so close to you and it was one of yours, right? So times like that are tough. I had another buddy who thought it was going to help to, swallow a bullet. And when he tried that, he didn't take his life and stayed alive, but ended up taking a lot of his face with him. So he added some surgeries and things there, but having to hold all that back together and call for help then and realize that. And so those were towards the end in my, say the end of my military career, not the end of my life. That was the end of one chapter of my life, I suppose you could say. And that closed that chapter when you could just picture yourself. I lived in this big home there. I had a 5-story house in New York, Watertown. It was super, super snowy in the winter, February time, probably right around this time, not too long ago. In 2019 is when I had gotten out of the military in May. And I was there. I had no direction in February, right before I was getting out processed. I had not sure what I was going to do. I was still drinking heavily and going through utilizing pain medications. And of course, there was a pistol there. And God or some other power took it upon himself to save my life that day with a primer being struck and nothing happening. That kind of took the toll, and those emotions that wave after you after that click instead of a bang is something that I'll never forget. So I felt overwhelmed. I felt that I couldn't keep going and living the same way that I was. When I got out of the military, I kept seeking help. I kept putting everything in. I started just working hard, worked in the oil fields when I got out in North Dakota and saved up a bunch of money, right? What else are you going to do? Work hard, try to forget everything, put it behind you. And that wasn't working either. COVID hit, and I said, I really need a change. I need something drastic. So I moved to Costa Rica. I sold everything and I moved and lived in Costa Rica for 3.5 years. In Costa Rica there, I got involved with playing golf again. I always really liked it. So getting involved with the community country club and playing golf in the morning, then utilizing the gym and using the pool. And then I was in school at the same time through online. I was getting back into religion and just reading basically affirmations and things to just help my mind. And I got involved in the community. I was teaching English at a language school out there. I met my beautiful now wife, and her daughter, Delaney, and so our daughter. And after living there, when we got married, we decided the best place was to raise her here in South Florida. So we moved back to South Florida, give her the best opportunity, go to high school, of course. You always want what's best for your children, of course. So then she can make her own choice on where she wants to go. But golf was so healing for me. It really put into perspective and helped me realize that the things that drove me to keep my life going was a purpose. People need purpose. And everyone says, yeah, of course, you need purpose. But on top of that, you need a sense of belonging, I found. And if you have both of those together, that gives you the will to live. And that's key. Not just living to live. You live because you want to live. You have a purpose. You have a place that you belong. You feel like that's where you are. You're meant to be here. There is no wondering. There is no searching. And I found that in golf. So when I started working in the golf industry, I became an assistant pro and a pro at a couple other places. Go
Sorry,
ahead.
sorry for interruption. This particular thing about God, because we'll be talking about that in a moment.
Yeah.
But when I was going through your stories, you
Hmm.
also, I mean, what you mentioned about, I'm sorry about your friends losing their life by choices, etc., and you going through this journey of the painkillers as well as getting into the tours of alcoholism, etc. And also in your memoirs or the writings that you've said, you have wrote a lot about personal demons that you had to fight on your own. So when you are talking about all these particular things, and thanks for this particular thing wherein the pivot took place, as I always believe is that there's always a reason why things happen, and that would have been that change. And for the fact that you took on your life, and just now what you mentioned, what I summarize in my philosophies, life is for living, not for existing. And again, one of my favorite quotes from Rumi says, "From our deepest of wounds comes the brightest of lights," something in that lines.
Oh, I like that.
And There was some other element that you mentioned about community, and that's one of the things which I use in this podcast is that because there are people who are going through it and people who are not too sure whether where they can turn to, or people who believe that what's the point in telling their story? They are already lost. But when I put out this platform, as I mentioned, this is the power of one. Even if that one person listens to it, and if we are giving him
Hmm.
some hope that life is for living, not for just giving up, we have succeeded. So, here, when we talk about a community, when you mentioned, again, one of my favorite quotes is we all are like angels with one wing. When we hold another one, that's when we learn to fly
Oh,
higher.
that's good.
And Jonathan, what I'm hearing so far is that with that pivot, that life defining moment which took place, I don't know whether it was the time that you took the gun and you held it against yourself, or whether it was the, the trigger jamming, whatever the case was, you changed. And that's when your life started. And now that the fact that you're telling me the story, it goes back to the same philosophy that life was is not just happening to you, but for you. So that today you can stand and say the story to people who are hurting.
Hmm.
So to continue with that, you got into golf. So golf, it's a game. So what is the relevance? As I started big before, what is the relevance with your passion? How you're changing that to the mental health challenges that that you have gone through, and the battles that you're still fighting. It's not that the battles are over for you. You still got
Hmm.
pain. You still got your hurting going on. You still at times need to keep your sanity together. Sorry about that, but
It's true. No, it's a daily struggle. And it's a struggle, right? You're fighting every day against this. And that's why I like to wake up in the morning and you start with affirmations, right? Everyone says it's so important to start off your day on the right foot. And whatever that might look like for you, but make sure it's in a positive light, right?
yeah.
Uh, there's a couple of sayings that people say, like one that stuck with me was that you can only control what's around you within like a hula hoop. If you put a hula hoop around you, that's all you can control. You can't control anybody outside of it. You can't control anything outside of it, just you. So with that, that means your attitude is something that you can most definitely control. So it has to be your outlook. And I find it fascinating when we start looking at like psychology and how even a fake smile can put your mood and elevate it into actually having a good day. Because I wear a fake smile a lot. And you need to. It's tough. So battling that every day is something that on the golf course, when I get out there, it just goes away, right? Everyone has their own therapeutic means. And I relate it a lot to like equestrian therapy, right? So you can be out there with the horses and it's amazing. You don't have to be riding them. You don't have to be the best person jumping the horses or doing anything crazy. That's like at golf. You don't have to be the best person out there. You just have to be out there just enjoying it. And whether that's taking advantage of the exercise that you get, whether it's taking advantage of just the sun rays because you're just outside. For me, I get distracted very easily, so I pay attention to all the little animals, all all the little scenery. If
Beautiful.
there's a balloon in the sky, I'll be noticing the only one out there and get distracted. But those things to me, those small little pieces of life, that's when you have to stop and you live in the moment, right? Being in the moment, living in the now, and that mindset, not for something that's going to happen in the future and not for something that happened in the past. You can only affect and change what you can do at this moment. And if you're not in the right mind frame, as I say in golf, you can approach the ball, but if you don't have the confidence, then back off, take a breath, reassess, and then reapproach, and then do it again when you got the confidence, right? So same thing in life. I had to reset myself, man. I had to. take a step back. I had to breathe, and I had to say, this is not working for me. I noticed the patterns that I was in that had gone downhill. I still have mental health struggles. I think this in the last year, I've been in the hospital 3 different times for it. I mean, it doesn't change. Since moving from Costa Rica back to the US, I think a holistic lifestyle has a lot to do with it. A lot of the stuff that is here in the US is just pushed and quick. And I think a lot of that processed stuff and everything. I mean, I'm taking 7 different medications right now, like literally a handful. And when I was in Costa Rica, I only took 1 different medication, right? Like, maybe there's something in the food. I don't know. Maybe it's that I'm working harder now and I'm putting myself out there, because these are uncomfortable situations, right? Having this conversations and putting myself out in podcasts and telling my story and the things that happened to me is not easy. I mean, I'm tense from it, but the lessons I learned is that, like you said, if it can affect one person, if I put myself out there and this video encourages one other person to even reach out, and I say, you don't even have to be a golfer. If you have whatever struggle, you could call me, you could email me, and I will listen, and I will be that person that has no judgment and is just there, right? Some people just need that. And it's not about what you're doing, it's just about who you are. So I encourage people, even come out on the golf course. Maybe you're not a big golfer, but if you just want to sit in the golf cart and hang out with a couple of us while we play, we're going to be talking. And because realistically, you only play golf maybe 10 minutes. The rest of the time you're hanging out in the golf cart, or you're walking, or you're waiting for somebody else to hit theirs. And when you're doing that, you're building that camaraderie. You have that teamship, that kinship that I missed from the military when I got back into the civilian world. I was searching for that community, right? Like, I was willing to give my shirt off of my back and do whatever it is, just like I would for my soldiers. I would lay down my life for any of my workers, any of my golf club members, and it just wasn't reciprocated all the time. So that's a big thing when you need to surround yourself with the same people, right? And you can't always inspire change in people. You can try, but eventually you can't let it wear down on yourself. You just part
Self-care.
ways. Yeah.
Self is optimum. But again, guys, if you're listening to this one, please know that if you look into the comments, I will be putting out Jonathan's links and where you can reach him. So feel free. Please feel free to reach out to him. He may not be giving you an answer immediately, but again, depending on time zone where this uh, video is being played at, but know that he has gone through struggles, and if he's able to help or at least suggest to where you can look into, I know he would be a person to do that.
Oh, of
and
course.
and you mentioned something very important about the hula hoop and the attitude. That goes back to Viktor Frankl's the famous book, The Man's Search for Meaning of Life, wherein he says there is a space between the stimuli and the response, and in that space lies your freedom. How we
Mhm.
choose to do what we want to do, that's where life can be yay or nay.
Exactly. And it's
And
those fine moments that define you as well,
true,
right?
very, very true. So now the question which is that uh, how do you, now you're playing golf, but then I from what I've read is that you have created a community wherein golf, you're using it for the mental wellness, whether it is for the forces or the veterans, etc. Can you say something about that?
Of course. So I like to think that golf is a little bit behind when it comes to inclusivity and accessibility, just because it's much harder, right? These golf courses were built 100 years ago, 30 years ago even, and times have changed a lot to allow people to be able to do the same thing. But now technology has also advanced. So it is getting much easier to utilize like Top Golfs and places like that to teach. And I like to think that I can inspire more people to come out into the green grass golf by utilizing technology such as uh, what do you call them? Those simulator ranges.
Simulators, yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. and by utilizing those to teach golf. And there's many different ways that we can do that. So I came up with Warrior Golf Academy to be a one-stop shop for everything that you need when it comes to golf. So there's other programs that kind of hit on it, but then they like kind of get rid of you and they only do so much. But I wanted to do everything, whether you're a golfer or not. I guarantee you, Thomas, I got something for you. You might not play golf, but I do everything from repairing golf clubs. So we get old golf clubs and we put new golf shafts in it. We clean them up and we repaint them, redesign them, make them look clean again, put new golf grips on it. So if you're an artsy and handsy person that likes arts and crafts, then there's a lot of bonding that happens while you're doing that as well, because the tasks aren't necessarily hard. It's pretty unique skill sets that you're learning as well, but then you get that time to bond with the people. So I pride myself on having these as one-on-one classes. I don't want it to be something that's in a group setting, right? Because that loses its intimacy. I want you to be able to open up to me or your instructors or whoever it is that you know that they've been through the same things. You know that they've had life traumas and struggles. And even if you're not talking about it, just being there, knowing that the other person has been through that, it gives you a different level of comfort. It's undescribable. So
Yep. It's all about the community, and especially when you know there's somebody to listen to. Because the other day I had again a fortune of a person who was talking about. Of course, there was a gentleman. I don't know if you've seen. He was talking about suiciding. I mean, sorry, about committing a suicide, and till somebody came and spoke to him, he took a step back, and now he's an advocate for suicide prevention.
mhm.
And very importantly, you had mentioned another factor about living day to day. Uh, Last week, I believe, or week before last, I had put out, a while back, I had put out a podcast about this gentleman who lost his memory, the short term memory. And for him, he's in prime of his age, a marathoner. And for the last 7 years, he's living with that short term memory disability. So every morning, he has got one mantra that I will chase happiness. I will seek for something which will make me happy. So, as you mentioned, whether it is a balloon going on top or a squirrel running around or the small joys of life, he takes it and makes it as his life moments.
And that's it. That's what makes it beautiful.
Yes, living in, you also mentioned so powerfully, living in the now. And that makes so much of a difference. A question which comes up is the Warrior Golf Academy. Is it only in Florida, or is it in parts of US, or is it online? How exactly does this
So I offer my
platform work?
services to everybody. So I did write SOPs and onboarding materials and booklets and stories for everything you need to know. And then I also supplemented all of those with online videos. So I can teach anybody how to play golf from anywhere and teach you everything you need to know. So please reach out to me if that's something that people are interested in. And like I said, it's not just about learning how to play golf, but maybe you want to be the person who drives around in the little cart that sells the drinks to people, right? Maybe you just want to do that. Maybe you want to come and just mow in the mornings. Maybe you wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning because you can't sleep, like a lot of us, and you're looking for something to do. And so you want to go mow the grass. Well, there's not a better place than the local golf course to go build community and mow the grass every once in a while. So ultimately, I encourage anything to get people outside, right? Volunteering, just helping, even if it's not golf. I know plenty of people that are involved in other things, equestrian therapy, fishing therapies, animal therapies, art therapies, podcasting therapies. There's so many that people use as ways to heal themselves, writing, and it's amazing once you break into the circle that I want to be. I like to use another good analogy I like to say is here in South Florida, we have all the Florida Keys. And I go, everyone loves it because it's so beautiful, but it's all these islands. There's so many of them. And that's like all these organizations that are out there. You have all these things that are out here and everyone thinks they're awesome and they're wonderful, but like they're all just out there. Nobody can get to them. I want to be that bridge, right? I'll be that 7 mile, that long bridge that nobody else wants to be because it's just a slab of concrete. And don't worry about it. That'll be me, and I will connect everybody. I'll be that resource that nobody wants to be. I will be that one. Just reach. That's why I say reach out. I've gotten people that just send me emails, and when I reply, they don't even say anything back. Sometimes it feels like it just goes to their spam, but they reached out and they told me a story, and they said that they listened to something and it inspired them to then go out and become a part of their friendships again. And it's amazing what people relay when you give them the opportunity. You just need to support one another. And in a world today, even like this, when digital and everything is so now and happen, it's so easy to just be like, oh, I'm just going to stay at home, just send me a link, or, I'll just Uber Eats something and get it to the house, or order at Amazon or whatever it is. And if you do those, then you're so disconnected, right? So we need to encourage things that are putting people back together. And I go, if it's golf, it's golf. And if golf isn't your thing, you know what? I will help you find your group of people that make you feel included. Because if someone took the time to reach out to me and say they had an issue, or just explain their story, or just want to talk, that took courage, right? I know what that's like. I know what that's like, asking for help and not knowing where to go or who to talk to or what you're doing. You just go, I don't even know what I need. I just know I need something. Like, cool. Like, I got you. It's all right. Like, we'll talk about it, and we'll figure it out. And sometimes that's all people need, is just a fresh set of eyes, somebody who's not going to judge and is just going to be there to listen. So feel free, get a hold of me.
So, guys, what you just heard was meet Jonathan, a friend you never knew until now. So, please feel free to reach out. Just being mindful of the time, Jonathan, is that as we conclude the session, is there something that you want to tell the listeners? Uh, Not an advice, but a suggestion, something that has allowed you to be a better human than you were.
Uh, Of course. You kind of hit the nail on the head when you said it could inspire change in somebody, right? So my biggest takeaway, and that I ask anybody, my ask from people when they say, what can I do? It's not like give money or do any of that other stuff. It's just be nice to one person one day. Wave, smile, even if you don't get it back. And if you bump into somebody, say, oh, I'm sorry, excuse me, I hope you have a great day. And like, take that extra moment, because that one extra moment could literally save someone's life. I've been on the other end of it, and just having that I still see that little girl who is, just gives you the little wave and a little smile as she walking by, like, that will always be in my head. And that changed my day, and apparently my life, because I still think of it. So you never know what small act of kindness can have a ripple effect and essentially just change the world that maybe you never even know about.
Wow. Thank you so very much, Jonathan. So, what we just heard was Jonathan's life was marked by constant change, significant challenges. We heard about his military career, though successful, leaving him with physical and emotional scars, including the brain injury and the burden of losing his friends. Even after leaving the military, he faced personal demons, struggled to find his footing. However, he discovered his unlikely lifeline in the game of golf, and this has become a therapeutic outlet and a path of healing. Jonathan's journey, if not anything, is a powerful reminder that even after facing immense adversities, it is possible to find healing, a very important word, purpose, and redemption. This was a beautiful conversation for me about resilience, passion, and the transformative power of human spirit. So, with this, Jonathan, Thank you so very much for your space and time. Much appreciated. Much gratitude.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Thomas, for having me. I appreciate your time. I say that's the most valuable thing we have. One thing that we never get back in this world is our time, right? So I appreciate you sitting down, everybody else listening in. I appreciate you sincerely for taking the time to listen to my story and the message that we're putting out. And if it resonates with you and you feel like, oh man, I could hang out with those guys, then come on,
Reach out. Reach out.
send us a message. That's it. That's it.
Fair enough. Thank you.